welcome to the Deep Dive. Our source material today is the audio record of a book launch for an anthology of poetry that is, frankly, just an act of sheer bravery. It's called Imprisoned Souls, poems of Uyghur prisoners in China.
It really is. And for you, the listener, the mission of this deep dive isn't just to talk about a new book. It's really about trying to understand the critical, almost existential role that literature and, the whole infrastructure of publishing plays in cultural survival.
Especially when a culture is facing this kind of systematic pressure.
Exactly. We're going to look at how this anthology, which features 25 poets who were imprisoned for their words, was painstakingly conceived, compiled, and why its very existence now is, well, it's a triumph.
Okay, so let's unpack this right away. I think the best place to start is with the engine behind the book, the publisher. We're talking about Hertfordshire Press, part of the Silk Road Media Company.
Right.
And the story of how they were founded back in 2004 in London is, I think, the perfect prologue for the mission they took on here.
Oh, it's fascinating. I mean, it shows how necessity can create an entire enterprise. The founder, Murat Akhmedjanov, he was studying publishing in the UK and got an assignment. Yeah, go check the London bookshops for literature on Central Asia. So he did. And he found 0 titles. Nothing.
0. In a city like London, a global hub for a region as vast as Central Asia, that's blank.
It's a complete void. And that absence was the catalyst. The founder, who's from Uzbekistan, he saw this massive vacuum. He was thinking of the rich history of places like Samarkand and Bukhara and realized none of this was making the leap into the English-speaking world.
So from literally 0 books.
From 0 books, the company's now published over 250 titles from 180 authors. They're bringing Eurasian culture to a global audience.
And it's so crucial to understand why being published traditionally, versus self-publishing, why that matters so much for books like this, for books fighting for survival in such a high-risk environment.
It's the difference between infrastructure and just a message in a bottle. The publisher stressed that self-publishing, while it's easy, it just doesn't provide the promotional support, the access to book fairs, or, critically, global rights sales.
Translation rights, film rights.
All of it. The publisher acts as a global commercial and, importantly, a legal shield.
So if self-publishing is like putting a message on your personal website, traditional publishing is making sure that message gets shipped globally, translated, and archived in every major library.
Precisely. The core insight here is that traditional publishing is a permanent cultural archive. It makes cultural memory physically unerasable across multiple countries. And that's exactly the function you need for a project this volatile.
We actually have a perfect story that shows just how powerful that can be. Let's talk about the biography of Igor Savitsky.
This is a remarkable case study. Savitsky was an artist who founded this massive art museum in Nukis, Karakalpakstan. I mean, a really remote region.
And this museum, it housed a huge collection of forbidden Soviet avant-garde art, right? Stuff he'd saved from being destroyed.
Exactly. But back in 2004-2005, the museum itself was on the brink of being shut down, destroyed by local authorities.
A vital cultural center, just facing extinction.
Yeah.
So what did the publisher do?
They released a small, focused biography about Savitsky. Just 1 book. But that book, it attracted the attention of a documentary filmmaker, Amanda Pope.
Oh, okay.
She used the book as a foundation for her film, Desert of Forbidden Arts.
So a regional crisis, documented in 1 book, suddenly goes global.
And that international spotlight saved the institution. The Savitsky Museum was protected. Today, because of that book and film, there are new buildings, government funding, and it gets 15,000 foreign tourists a year.
Wow.
A single traditionally published book didn't just document history, it changed the destiny of an entire cultural institution.
It's an incredible proof of concept for the Uyghur poetry book. But we have to stress how hard this is, especially for translated works. The publisher noted that translated books are, less than 4% of sales in the UK?
That 4% is key. It means they aren't just publishing books, they're actively creating the market infrastructure for these crucial voices to survive. Every sale is a hard-won victory.
So that really sets the stage for the true hero of this anthology.
Yeah.
The compiler and editor, Aziz Isa El-Kun. He was the one doing the heavy lifting.
And this project was just fraught with peril. The publisher even admitted to being a bit skeptical at first because it was such a very sensitive subject.
The caution alone just underscores the risk involved, doesn't it? So what was the process for the compiler?
It was a 5-year investigation. He started in 2017, right when the state repression was escalating massively. And the challenge he faced was immense because he was working against an almost total information blackout imposed by the authorities.
Right. You can't just call a local library.
Yeah.
So how do you gather the works of 25 poets in a total blackout?
It was this agonizing process of piecing together fragments. Old poems from books published before the crackdown, brittle copies of old magazines, bits and pieces found online through secure channels. He was essentially a detective.
Reconstructing the work of people the state was actively trying to erase.
And you can feel his motivation. He talked about this deep and unvarying need to bring their poetic voices to the wider world because these people were being persecuted for the simple act of writing. Their poems, he said, must not be lost to silence.
And if we're talking about his professional commitment, we have to look at the immense personal cost he was paying at the same time.
Yes. He shared two deeply affecting details during the launch that they put this whole project into a context of profound trauma.
What were they?
First, he revealed that his father's grave, a physical symbol of his family's history, was cruelly erased by the Chinese government in early 2019.
It's not just destroying a person, it's destroying their memory, their resting place. It's an attempt at total erasure.
And second, because of the communication ban since 2017, he hasn't been able to care for or even speak freely with his aging mother. He mentioned speaking to her only a handful of times.
And each time?
Each time, the call was mediated and monitored through the mobile phone of a Chinese policeman.
Wait, speaking to his own mother, but only through a police officer's phone? That one detail just encapsulates the total lack of privacy, the emotional isolation he was working under. He's collecting poetry of the imprisoned while being a captive of this communication ban himself.
Absolutely. That context, it turns the book from a literary collection into a defiant act of remembrance, of resistance, all authored under constant, intense duress.
That level of personal devastation is a direct result of the larger campaign we need to look at. So let's shift to the broader context from the human rights advocates at the launch. Why were poets and intellectuals targeted so specifically?
Because the persecution was aimed at the entire cultural and educational elite. Poets, writers, scholars, university presidents. This all really intensified with the Strike Hard campaign that launched in May 2014.
And what's crucial to understand here, as you said earlier, is that this wasn't random. It was a calculated, systematic process.
Precisely. It was a systematic silencing. The speakers noted that an entire generation of Uyghur thinkers was targeted. It looks like a surgical attempt to decapitate the cultural leadership.
You mentioned some specific examples, right?
Yes, globally recognized figures. The respected folklorist Dr. Rahila Dawat, University President Tiep Tashpolat, the economist and Sakharov Prize laureate Ilham Tohti. These weren't fringe figures. They were the academic and cultural foundation.
And the government didn't just arrest the thought leaders. They went after the very foundations of their history, of their identity. Since 2017, they've been actively rewriting history, and I think this is key, criminalizing previously legal cultural materials.
Yes, and we need to clarify this idea of being retroactively criminalized.
So just to be clear for the listener, retroactively criminalized means these poets were being arrested for writing things that were totally legal when they wrote them, sometimes years earlier.
That is exactly right. The sources cited examples of previously approved Uyghur language textbooks that were suddenly rebranded as symbols of extremism, textbooks used in primary and middle schools. Culture itself was turned into evidence of guilt.
That strategy is just brutal.
Yeah.
It makes your entire identity illegal. The message is clear.
The goal, as one speaker put it, was to sever language from its speakers and to make culture itself unsafe. When you imprison a poet, the message you send is unambiguous. Imagination is forbidden.
And we can't lose sight of the staggering scale of this. Since 2016, this campaign has led to over 2 million Uyghurs in concentration camps. It's deemed a systematic crime against humanity. This book, made of words collected at immense risk, it serves as vital evidence for the people who endured it.
Which brings us to the poetry itself. I mean, given the punishment and imprisonment, you would assume the content must be highly political, seditious.
And is.
Well, this is what's so surprising. The analysis from the speakers suggests the poetry is often not polemical or strident. In fact, a lot of it expresses simple, universal themes. Love, suffering, nostalgia for the homeland, connections to nature.
So they're being jailed for expressing normal human emotions.
And cultural love, of course, but often using traditional idioms of love poetry. And the most disturbing detail here is that many of these poems were published in officially sanctioned newspapers. They were perfectly legal until, as one speaker put it, suddenly it was not legal anymore.
The arbitrary nature of it is compounded by the secrecy, I imagine.
Totally. The sentencing for many of these poets was secret. The precise charges, they remain unknown even to their own families.
This is where the poetry shifts from literature to being essential witness, evidence of an atrocity.
Absolutely. Several speakers highlighted the common, tragic final sentence in the poets' biographies. After detailing their life and work, the bio often concludes with the stark phrase, his or her current circumstances and whereabouts remain unknown.
That phrase carries such a staggering weight.
It does. And Dr. Jennifer Langer, one of the speakers, she explicitly connected that phrase to archival records of Nazi persecution of her own lost family members. Those reports often ended with a chillingly similar statement. No trace of him or her was found. That linguistic parallel. It just conveys the cold, calculated nature of this silence.
Yet even against that wall, the poetry found a way out. This idea of smuggled poetry.
Yes, the book proves that even inside the camps, the human spirit insists on being heard. There's the case of Gunisa Gulhan, a teacher and a mother of two. She was sentenced to 17.5 years.
And her poem, Nameless, it was smuggled out of the prison.
It was. It spread all over social media. And what's so moving about it is its focus. It urges people not to worry about her, the author, but to focus their love and energy on her two children. She wrote, "Do not shed tears and sorrow to remember me. I entrust 2 stars to you for my sake. Shower them with your love."
That is a pure act of resistance, rooted in motherhood, in love. It completely defies the prison walls.
And this shows that activism on the outside still matters inside the region. They also highlighted the poem Yanaram by Professor Abdurrahim Utkur. It, too, was smuggled out, set to music, and became this powerful anthem in exile.
And the government's reaction just proved its power.
Exactly. The song based on those smuggled lyrics was then banned in Xinjiang. The fact that the authorities felt they had to ban a song proves that the global effort to keep these voices alive is actively challenging the silencing project on the ground.
So we bring this back to you, the listener. You now have the context. You see the systematic targeting, the personal cost. The speakers made it clear. Reading this poetry is not a passive act. It's framed as an ethical one, a necessity for those who stand for humanity.
Understanding this book, it provides the human context that counters those governmental claims of re-education. The collection highlights their humanity, their value, and the contribution to humanity that Uyghur culture represents. The book's survival is, in itself, a vital act of resistance.
We started with the story of the Savitsky Museum, saved by the attention from a single book. But the speakers also noted that media attention has shifted away, partly due to, Western government's fear of offending a powerful China. So considering the power of one book to save a museum, what specific action beyond just buying this book can a private individual take to ensure the voices of these 25 poets, imprisoned simply for expressing love and justice, are not lost to history? That is the question we leave you to explore.